So we've been having impact conversations over the last few weeks, and we've been looking at practical ways in which programs that have been instituted are actually making sure that people make a connect between what they don't, where they are, and where they can be. And that has been through the KCB Foundation 2Jiajiri program. And that we will have a conversation about today as well. Already seated in the hot seat this morning is Mendi Njonjo, who is the director of the KCB Foundation. Mendi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm happy to be here. I'm great.
Well, fantastic. We're glad to have you here because we've been talking KCB Foundation, KCB Foundation, KCB Foundation. We've talked foundation.
Now the foundation is here.
Now the foundation. You are the mountain. Who is Mohammed? I'm not... There's Mohammed, there's the mountain, there's foundation, and then there's Mendi. And you're here today, and so it's really a pleasure for us to then be able to make that connect with you.
Thank you.
We're going to be joined soon by a program participant, and his John Mutunga. He'll join us and tell us, a little bit more about his story. So that'll be great to do. But even as we do that, we like to put people to work. I still you don't have enough to do. We put people to work here when you come in the morning, and we give your brain a little bit of a tumble turn.
Okay.
And CT goes to a different African country every week. How he goes, you can talk about that with me later. But he comes back from a different country with a basket full of proverbs, and he gives us one every day. And then he's going to share that one with you. You let us know how you would interpret that, and we'll see how many millions of points with which you can do whatever you want he will give.
Yes, our proverbs for this week are from the Republic of Burkina Faso. Those who seek revenge must remember to dig 2 graves.
Okay. Those who seek revenge
Must remember. Yes.
to dig 2 graves.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Seek revenge. Just please don't let us stop you. Proceed.
Okay.
But while you're doing it,
Yes.
dig 2 graves.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So my interpretation on that is it's perhaps a caution
Yes.
to anyone who wants to go seeking revenge that it may end up being also something that points at you. So it maybe is akin to the African proverb, if you point with one finger, there's 3 others that are pointing at you. So it's perhaps in that, can I say family of proverbs, in that basket that CT has. That would be my interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many points?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10,
Yes.
let's be fair, because she did actually rally very valiantly and gave a response that makes sense. Out of 10, you said?
Yeah.
11.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Because I also donated a proverb.
Very well done.
There you go. All right. So look, Mendi, there's so many things when you look at a nation that go belly up every now and then. You talk about corruption, you talk about lack of access to education, lack of access to opportunity, the employment rate, everything sometimes. And you say, if you were to solve problems, where do you start? Really? So obviously, with what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks, even since December last year, is the conversations that we've been having around how lives have been impacted through the programs under the KCB Foundation. Talk us through that a little bit and say, okay, well, did you look around and say, okay, guys, there's too much that's not happening, and we need to be able to see how we can sort out some of these issues. Tell us about that and how you get into this business of helping.
Absolutely. So it really starts from what it is that you've talked about, which is there's too much that's not happening. From the educational perspective, in terms of really smart Kenyans, not being able to access high school and tertiary education. And then the biggest of them all, access to jobs, decent jobs. I think that is a preoccupation that any person who lives in Kenya, actually anybody who lives on the continent, really should be preoccupied by, because unemployment is significant. Youth unemployment is particularly significant because right now we're talking about 67% of young people in Kenya are not able to get a decent job. About 1 million Kenyans every year enter the workforce with no possibility of being able to be employed. So for us, it really starts there. And it actually doesn't start as a problem. It's actually looking at these young people as the precious resource they are, human capital.
Yeah.
It's the best thing we have in the nation. So for us, it's really seeing how do we build on this really precious resource, which is young, smart, ready to work, ready to school people. And that's where the KCB Foundation comes in.
The 2Jiajiri program is one specific. Why that?
So it's very specific because we knew that if we wanted to tackle the issue of unemployment, we really had to tackle it from two elements. One is from the space of providing skills for people who want to enter the workforce. Either you want to be self-employed or you want to be an employer. And then the second was around really supporting enterprises, businesses, especially the smaller businesses, so the micro and the small medium enterprises. So to tackle these two issues, we provide vocational training scholarships every year. And then we also have a program still within 2Jiajiri where every year we support these MSMEs with business development support, and through partnership with KCB Kenya, also access to finance. So it's this two-pronged approach that is really seeking to skill Kenyans, and then the second to really build strong, viable businesses, as well as now also making sure they're able to access capital in the forms that they need. Yeah.
So how have you seen, I mean, we've heard some of the stories. I'm looking forward to the one that we'll hear today. But how have you seen that lives have been impacted by this project? What have you actually practically seen that has said, you know what, guys, this is working and we should continue?
So if I turn to, let's say, something like vocational training, and you have the ability to have somebody who otherwise do not have been able to attend one of these market courses that we really try and support in terms of scholarships, so construction, beauty, and so on and so forth. So the ability for someone to be able to enter into a vocational training institution, get the skills that they need, and then exit, and then subsequently get employment. I think for me there are so many stories, because like last year we trained about 16,000, we provided 16,000 scholarships. So out of those, it is the ability of someone who otherwise would not have been able to get this particular skill set and be able to transform that into money in their pocket. And as we all know, I mean, we live in this country. Unfortunately, access to a job is sometimes the gateway to even being able to access your health rights, being able to access, let me say, almost the entire slew of rights that should be accruing to us as citizens. So that's the one thing that we have also seen. And then on the other hand, our enterprise support program, we've also been able to really see, and it's very gratifying, being able to see all of these businesses that we've been able to support. Last year, we supported about 37,000 businesses with business development support. So being able to see them grow in terms of they have been able to get business development support, they're stronger, they're able to access finance in the forms that they need, and they're therefore able to sustain themselves. And we all know it was perhaps, it was a tough year last year. So for me, I think there are very many gratifying stories amongst these vocational training scholarships, as well as also the enterprises that we were privileged to support last year.
All right, now I'm looking at the 16,000 scholarships, because then even with the education system, they talk about 100% transition. There's one thing to empower them. There's another thing to ensure that they're just as sustainable as the 37,000 businesses that you're supporting. So which are the success stories in terms of those who have actually stayed, are hanging on after giving them the skills and now starting their own businesses or getting into employment, and they're standing in there strongly? Are there circumstances where people have slipped back, or you're very, very confident that they're all just but flying high as you expected them?
So we do have very many success stories. So if I take the vocational training stories, scholarships rather, that you're pointing out, so we do have participants who have been able to get the training and are now self-employed, and I'm really grateful that you've also been able to profile some of them. And when it comes to the businesses, that is a really excellent question, because we do not think that the support we provided is necessarily going to be one and done. We're also relatively sure that every so often we may need to really support these businesses, because, this it's a tough economic environment right now, right? And so one of the things that we are also doing, even with the group of participants we supported last year, is to also provide support to them this year on a needs basis.
Okay.
So we are really trying to also communicate to the people that we work with that we're here for the long haul. So it's not just coming in, a quick intervention and then leaving. What we want to do is to make sure that if we start with you, we really try and stay the course, so that at least it's not one of those interventions where, you see somebody and then the next thing you know, they're gone. Yeah.
The thing that I find utterly and absolutely fascinating is how KCB Foundation came upon this extremely remarkable way of looking at being part of a solution. I'm saying this because in the weeks that we've had people who participated in the program, and just looking at the width and the breadth of the program across the counties that we have in this country, and I'm looking at this model and I'm saying, but this is a model that can be escalated, not by KCB. No. This is a model that can be actually escalated by the government. You train people, you then partner with people who can actually employ, and you move this particular conversation forward. I'm saying this because forget the job, forget the possibilities. The thing that in my mind strikes me the most is the hope it provides, because apathy is a terrible thing to have. One is young, one is vigorous, one has the energy, and one wants to do things, and you can't see the end of your study. You know you're going to school to study, but you can't see where this thing is going to take you. It's the hope. Okay. Having said that, a bank has very many partners. They usually call clients. These people who come and open accounts. Yes. And you've utilized them well in this particular program. If we're to think of escalating it, what would we do?
So you've asked what if I was in government. So maybe let me defer that question in terms of what the government perhaps would do. And then let me say what we would do in terms of really scaling it up.
See, now that's a nice way of looking at it. It's a very good way of looking at it, yes. Ask your own question and then answer it. It's good.
So still out of 10, maybe I'm still getting an 11.
Now you're 12 because
okay.
the response is perfect. Yes.
So if I was to scale it up, I think one of the things that is very clear is that if you look at the enterprises we support, we've been supporting youth-owned enterprises. So for people who have businesses and are aged between 18 to 34. But it's also clear that even for maybe older people, even for sectors we don't necessarily support, that this is something that would be a very welcome addition. And then unfortunately also if you look at our vocational training program, our scholarships, the ones that we provide, you'll find that for every scholarship we issue, there's maybe 10 people who were not able to get the scholarship, really wanted it, but really just because of resources, we weren't able to service that. So I think there is need to have a conversation in terms of how do we bridge this difference between people who want to go to school but cannot go to school, not because of aptitude, not because of anything except financial ability. So I think that's part of now the government conversation we need to have in terms of how do we bring all resources to the table. And one of the ways that we have tried to do this with county governments is by partnering with some county governments where they come up with 50-50 matching funding, where we provide, let's say for every shilling we provide, they provide another shilling. And through this, we're able to support students in some counties to access vocational training. So it's a model that can really be picked up across, the entire country. And through this, we are therefore able to now really stretch our shilling further.
So it should be a conversation that's front and center, because isn't that the folks who enter into the 2Jiajiri program, most of the times you'll find, are out of high school, not able to make the connect to higher education, not even to, a TVET. but then you make the connection for them. 6 months going into a training course. So they're getting the fundamentals that they need to start a job and then maybe get education later on, or to then start a business. But then that is the conversation right there, that it is possible to actually put them in school.
Yes.
And we're not finding, okay, I'm not going to answer the question. Are we finding people who are coming for this Skills Connect who are able financially to put themselves through school?
Are we finding enough people?
No, are we finding any people who are on their own able to send themselves to school coming to the 2Jiajiri program?
So generally, you will find there are people who are already able on their own initiative, right, through their own funding or through friends and family, able to put themselves through whatever vocation, private or public learning institutions. Now, for those, we find they are not necessarily the people who would really need 2Jiajiri.
Exactly.
Because the ones we're looking for are the ones who deeply desire but don't have the economic ability to join said program. So those are the ones we're really looking to partner with.
Exactly. That's the thing, that you won't find the folks who can pay for themselves then in the 2Jiajiri program. However, that there's a significant amount of those, a significant enough that you're not able to take all of them at one go, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So there is a big problem.
There is, because as I said, for every scholarship we provide, for every student we're able to give a scholarship for the vocational training, that is, you'll find, number one, even the people who applied, it's probably going to be, 25, 30? The ones who were shortlisted, maybe 20. And then the ones who were able to place are now going to be, out of that, maybe 20, 30, maybe 2, right? So, and we did about... 16,000 last year, 16,000 scholarships last year, right? So if you look at the total number, it's easily about 150,000 maybe who would have wanted, but we weren't able to, just because of the resources that we have.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about how you are bringing in persons with disability in your program, people with special needs. Perhaps even last year, the 16,000 thereabout, what was the percentage that were persons with special needs?
So we try to make a very deliberate effort that 10% of our programming should be dedicated to some affirmative action element. So persons with disability for 2Jiajiri are the people who we have really tried to make sure we not only ring fence, but we also put aside 10% of these scholarships for persons with disability. And the way that we have been able to do that is that it starts from the beginning, because you can't just say, I want to support persons with disability in our scholarships program. So one of the things we do is that whenever we're partnering, let's say with training institutions, we make sure that we partner with training institutions that have the capacity and the ability to provide this sort of training to persons with disability. And then out of that, we also make a call where we are really emphasizing that we're also looking for persons with disability to enter to join the scholarship application process. In addition to that, even when you look at our weighting criteria in terms of how we assign the scholarships, we also make sure that we have really put in extra weighting for people who have disability, so that we can at least affirm that commitment towards getting persons with disability. So we don't always hit the 10%, but it's certainly a target that we will always try and make sure we attain year on year.
Very critical as such, because then someone would say, how are they exposed to this application process as well? You do realize sometimes they have concerns even with just being left out in government, exercises. It's really, really important that we'll do a follow-up on that maybe in the future, if you actually then meet that 10% for them as well. Yeah.
So what do we see? I mean, we talk to the participants who come, we talked to a number of them, and it blows my mind every time, because the transition between where there was hopelessness and you're not going to be able to find who's going to help you, and where they were and where they are 6 months after that is phenomenal. The transition between, well, here I was, I in my mind I remember the young lady coming from Kitale, I believe, who then became went into the who went into automotive engineer.
Yes.
And the story was, well, you're not going to go to school, number one, because we can't do it. And then number two was, look at people who have gone into a course and you've done better than in high school, but you don't have the opportunity. And so she did make the application through somebody who gave her an opportunity to do so. And the transition between whereby there was absolutely nothing that you would then be able to achieve, to the point whereby now you can actually imagine owning your own mechanic shop and working under and for somebody else in 6 months is unbelievable. And it's a model that I think needs to be replicated, that we talk about, that what you're doing is creating hope, but not just creating it in a mind, but establishing it as a reality for people to be able to do. I think that maybe KCB Foundation doesn't realize just how impactful this thing actually is. So those are the champions of the project, and then how can you look at this and say, we can enhance it even more? Are those conversations happening for you?
Absolutely. And that's a really pertinent observation in terms of choosing hope, right? As a really, almost like a radical choice, because sometimes when you have these conversations, it's really easy to, just be cynical and be, that one of the most disappointing conversations that sometimes happen in the country is that there are opportunities, but they're not necessarily for people like us. That's the discourse that happens within some spaces, right? And for me, what I really like about programs like 2Jiajiri is that opportunity to really show that it really doesn't matter, not your gender. You want to get into automotive, right? Your socioeconomic status. Those are not things that really should matter, right? So really also trying to fulfill that promise that is in the Constitution and all of these documents that we have as a nation. And I think even from KCB's perspective, that notion of shared prosperity, that notion that we really have to, can I say, water the nation that actually feeds us, even as a bank, as a financial institution, as a foundation. I think for me that is something that is absolutely spot on. And the ability to, I like the idea of rallying around hope, right? And then the programming that then now happens really starts with looking at hope almost as a North Star in terms of this is what we're looking at. It is creating opportunities. It's not looking at youth unemployment. It is looking at young people who want to work. So how do we tap into this really amazing resource that we have? So it's really flipping conversations and starting with hope and starting with promise as what it is that we're leading by.
Indeed. Mendi Njonjo is a director at the KCB Foundation, and as we've been looking into those conversations, we're going to look at now the impact from the point of view of one of the program participants who can talk to some of the things that you've been talking about this morning. And he joins us now, and it's John Mutunga. John, good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
You found your way here all right. We've been waiting for you, but we're glad that you've come at least to share some of this information with us, and you tell us in whatever way you're comfortable speaking, so that is fine. We've been talking about the impact that this foundation, or rather that this program has had on people, but we want to know a little bit about your story, where you started off, how you got plugged in to the program.
Okay. After Form 4, I didn't do well in KCSE. Can I speak also Swahili?
Yes, please go ahead.
Very, very, very
please
welcome.
Go ahead.
After Form 4, now I used to see nobody now cares about me anymore because you didn't do well. So what do you want? Unataka kwenda college? Unataka kwenda college gani basi? Nani atakulipia college?
Ndio.
Hata tukikulipia hatukushua kama like ushacheza high school, tumekupea hiyo chance ya kusoma, umeenda umecheza. That is what my parents wanasema, lakini mimi najua I did my best.
Walisema ulicheza ukiwa high school?
Juu ukufanya vizuri, wengine wamefanya vizuri, mimi last born. Mimi najua nilifanya my best. So nilikuwa kwa shughuli za kutafuta basi naweza fanya nini juu wengine wanaenda shule, so mimi nafaa kuwa nafanya kitu. Nikaonanga post ya ilikuwa ad kwa Facebook ya KCB 2Jiajiri. Hiyo date yenye walikuwa wana advertise, nikaimark, alafu nikatokeanga. Hiyo time nilichelewa, sikupata chance hiyo mwaka. But hiyo mwaka yenye ilikuja nilikuwa nishajua kuna kitu kayo inaendelea, so nilifuatilia. Alafu nilikuwa nishajua the location, sasa place yenye mara ya pili nilienda mapema. Hivyo ndivyo niliingia kwa 2Jiajiri. Nikapata hiyo chance.
Uli-apply? Ama uli-apply
alafu kuna mtu alikuwa anapeana story. Mbona unafikiria unafaa upewe hiyo chance? Walinipea hiyo chance. Nikasoma CITC.
Hapa Nairobi?
Hapa Nairobi.
Alright. Kwa muda gani?
Mwaka moja. Alafu juu kitu nilikuwa nimejitolea, like nilikuwa naenda daily. Nilikuwa najua hii course yenye nimechagua nafaa kwenda nao mahali. Sifai eti tena nifanye course mtu amenilipia alafu tena ikuwe tu ni bure. Nilifanya welding.
Hiyo course ya welding, wakati ulikuwa una apply ulishajua ndio unataka kufanya, ama ulipata kuchagua wakati ulishaingia foundation? Ilikuwa passion already ulikuwa nayo?
Okay, mimi ni creative.
Alright.
Naweza fanya vitu mingi sana na akili. So hata before ni apply 2Jiajiri nilikuwa naogopa welding. Najua mtu mmoja ashaiuliwa na stima. Nilikuwa naogopa sana welding, lakini wakati nilienda huko nikaona watu wengi wame-apply electrical installation. Nikasema hapana, mimi sitaenda place kuna watu wengi, acha niende welding ndo hata niache kuogopa stima. Siku za kwanza nilikuwa naogopa kweli.
Of course.
Niliacha kuogopa wakati tulienda attachment. Hata si nikiwa shule. Bado nikiwa shule kuna venye nikiguza stima nilikuwa nasikia tu ni short. Na watu wengine wasikii kiwa short. Mimi niliweza cooperate welding wakati tumeenda attachment. Attachment pia nilienda huko Ngong karibu na mtaa. Nikamaliza attachment. Sababu ya attachment mtu alipwi. Na pia nyumbani washanionyesha sasa hiyo usipotafuta shughuli yenye inakupea do, hapa pia tuwezi kupea do. Ikabidi 2Jiajiri walikuwa wanatuambia tufungue kampuni.
Yani uanze biashara yako?
Uanze biashara yako. Na nilikuwa na vitu mingi sana zinani-inspire. Eti nakuja nafanyia msee kazi na nilipi. Nilikuwa nafikiria mbona hata mimi nisifanye kitu. Si mimi ndo nafanya welding hapa. Lakini kwanza ni ngumu. Una machine, una hata stima, hata ujui unaenda kwanza wapi. Lakini at least nilikuwa na idea.
Yes.
Nikiwa nimefungua workshop, vitu zingine zitakaa mtu pole pole. Hivyo tu ndio nilifanya. Nikafungua workshop last year. Around mwezi wa 6. Wakati kulikuwa na Gen Z protest. Hiyo ndio time nilijenga workshop. Na struggle tu hapo.
So ulikuwa na keep your motisha? Because in the midst of your Gen Z protest, na wewe ukasema basi energy na sisi tutaenda kaende. Now listen, hizi vitu ulifungua na workshop. Umejua hiyo time ulikuwa unaanza, hata uko na hata umejua uko unalipwa ukifanya kazi kadogo, lakini hizi vitu zitoka wapi workshop ikasimama?
Okay.
Ama uko na viungo vipi vimesomesha workshop?
Sawa. Place yenye niko ni jua kali. So apart from welding pia kuna shughuli zingine kama kuunda jiko. Kuunda jiko nilifunzwa na mtu mwingine tofauti. Like nilienda na nikaona akifanya kazi, nililearn kuunda jiko na kuobserve. Pia nilikuwa naongea na huyo msee ananiambia pesa yeye uan. Naona hata ni dopo, hata at least ukiunda jiko 2 unajua umeenda mtaa na 100. welding haiko inalipwa. Welding hata sahii mwanafunzi alipwi. But kuunda jiko ukiwa mwanafunzi unaweza lipwa. So nilitoka welding nikaenda kufunzwa jiko. But siku sasa hiyo nimefungua workshop. Ni hiyo moment yenye nikistruggle pia naona historia ulipwi.
Na uliambiwa usikuje home bila kitu.
Actually hata si eti uliambiwa usikuje home bila kitu. Mimi mwenyewe nahitaji do. Nitahitaji credit kupigia mtu ama kitu kama hiyo. Saa zingine unaangalia una kitu na una option. So utafanyaje? Unarukia tu yenye iko karibu.
Vipi?
Poa.
Uko sawa? Karibu lakini
asante.
Mimi naitwa Muga. Wewe ni wale watu ambao inatakikana tuwasherekee wakati wa Shujaa Day. Kwa sababu mtu ambaye amejibidisha kitambo atafute namna ya kujistiri na kuhakikisha kwamba anawezesha maisha yake. Hiyo ni kitu muhimu sana.
Unajua watu wengi kuingia hiyo ndio option tuko nayo.
Kabisa.
Huwezi ngoja eti unatafutiwa. Watu wa kutafutia hata wamechoka ukiwaangalia unahurumia tu.
Kabisa. So after twende nyuma kidogo tu. Ukimaliza masomo KCITI. Sio ulisema KCITI? CITI. Yeah. CITC ndio ulienda. Okay. Wakati ulimaliza, ulifanya nini kabla ulipata hii idea ya kufungua workshop yako?
Unajua, uko CITC, nakumbuka vitu za mwisho zilikuwa kwenda attachment. Hapo ndo tuliacha hata kujanga town, mtu anatafuta workshop, like attachment karibu na workshop iko karibu na kwenu. Mimi nakaa huko Ngong, so mimi pekee ndo natoka huko. Si watu wengi wanatoka huko. So nilijipata kule hivyo sipati watu tumesoma nao eti tuna engage. Pia kule hakuna kampuni eti kama huku town wasi walikuwa nasema wanaenda industrial area. Mimi ningeweza kupiga hesabu yangu singeweza kufika huku. So mimi nilienda ile workshop iko karibu. Nikaambia msee story yangu, nikaambia hata niko attachment. Akakubali nikuwe kwa workshop yake.
Ufanya kazi ya kulipwa?
Haiko ya kulipwa. Wewe ni mwanafunzi. Ukiwa mwanafunzi hata kama umetoka college, yeye yuko hakuwa hapo, hayuko sure kama unajua chenye unafanya.
Sure.
Yeah, so anakuobserve. So kwa hiyo msee nilifanya 6 months. Inashanga bado hata 100. Mimi niliacha kwenda kufanya hiyo welding. Niliacha kwenda kufanya hiyo welding. Juu msee kuna kitu alikuwa anipea. Na nikaenda kuunda jiko. Siku za kwanza nilikuwa napata so moja.
Alright.
But nikuulize, ulipokuwa na huyu mzee as you call him, kuna kitu yoyote ambao ulikuwa wewe mwenyewe ukifikiria ulijifundisha kitu ambacho ulikuwa kabla ya kufika hapo ulikuwa hujui?
Nimejifunza hapo kwake. Vitu mingi sana. Nimejifunza vitu mingi sana.
Really?
Kama interact na customer. Vitu kama kuongea na customer nimejua nikiwa kwake. Juu hata apart from hiyo kazi yenye hizo tasks zenye alikuwa anatupea, ningeweza kupatana na tuseme mtu na motorbike anataka kufanya welding, nikuje tu bila kuinvolve boss, ni kazi tu ya sport haraka. Mimi mwenyewe nipatie 100. Juu hata 100 yake akipata tutagawana.
Kwa hivyo pia ulichangamka kiakili.
Inabidi nimetafuta best yangu mwenyewe, like nakupea idea. Siwe ndo kuna motorbike. Mimi mwenyewe ndo nakuja na hiyo idea. Nakwambia na si unaweza uongezee tu kama mabati hapa. Sasa mtu hata akikuja tuongezie mabati. Hata naona ni kama na overcharge. Hata ni kitu kidogo mimi tu hapa tunataka tu nipate 100 tu.
Sorry, go ahead. No, please, go ahead.
No, ukijangalia sahi na wakati ule kabla hujaingia, alafu na wenzako wengine, unaona angalau kwa sababu sasa ma youth wote wana struggle, lakini angalau unaona uko mahali kwa sababu ya hizo skills ulipata, na hata hiyo interaction umekuwa na mtu wa workshop, hata kama kwa nakulipa na mtu wa jiko. Unajionaje kivipi kama Mkenya, youth sahizi kwa hiyo competition yenye iko kwa employment?
Kulingana penye mimi nimetoka. mimi naweza sema wale wasi wote nimepitia kwa hata wewe mwenye yako ananilipa.
Yes.
Alikuwa tu pata story. Like ameni help mali. Siseme eti akumake impact. Wewe msi hata tuko sana. Nilifika tu siku moja nikamshow nimefanya hapa kazi miezi kadhaa. Na naona ni vizuri niende place nyingine. Tukaachana tu hivyo.
Lakini skill yako uko nayo.
Niko nayo. Ndio nifungue workshop. Nilikuwa najua nafaa tu kuwa na doya ya kuwa member wa Jua Kali. Kuna place like kuna land ya government yenye iko set aside ya watu wa Jua Kali. Wakati nilienda kuunda jiko, hiyo tu ndo nilikuwa natafuta.
Okay.
Ndo niache kutafuta huku nje. Like unajua saa zingine unaenda kwa workshop ya mtu anakujua already. Anaanza Asha kujaja hata before umwambie kitu yote. Anakwambia wewe brother ako well off. Wewe hata sidhani uko serious unataka kutafuta kazi. Nakwambia na mbona si unalimanga, usiende ulime. Mtu anataka kukua roho. Lakini
lazima niulize kulima iko na shida gani bwana?
Haina shida. Haina shida.
Wewe mbona hutaki kulima?
Na mbona nisiunde tools zitalima?
Hapo ndio.
So ulifungwaje hiyo workshop yako? Kusema sasa hiyo mwezi ya 6 last year.
Okay. Kupewa space. Una need 7,000. Hiyo 7,000 nimetafuta more than mwaka moja.
Hiyo ni rent?
Okay. Registration na rent ya 1 month. Nimetafuta more than mwaka mzima. Like saa zingine unapata ukikaribia kupata hiyo do unapata kitu kingine yenye hata ujui hiyo do ilienda wapi. Hiyo do ilikuwa ngumu kupata.
Kuna watu husema kwamba ni kama shida najua ukiwa na pesa. Kabla hujapata pesa mambo ni sawa tu. Pesa ikitokea tu hivi
mambo ni mengi.
Yes. Mahitaji ni mengi.
Mahitaji.
Alafu
so like nimekuwa nikitaka sana kuwa na workshop. Hata before niende kwa 2Jiajiri nilikuwa nishaname place yenye nitakuwa nayo kama workshop yangu. Hata nakumbuka hii mwaka uko Januari. Mi huandika resolutions. Niliangalia za 2021. Before ningie 2Jiajiri. 2Jiajiri nilikuwa 2022. 2021 niliona resolutions zilikuwa get a job.
Very nice.
I have my own workshop.
Indeed. So ulipata hiyo pesa, hiyo 7,000, ulipata aje at the end of the day?
Kwa jiko hata si kujua kuunda jiko haraka. Like nilitake siku mingi sana. So kuunda jiko moja ni 50 bob.
Okay.
Nilifika place nikaanza kuunda.
Tafadhali tupeleke pole pole.
Okay. Kuunda frame.
Jiko inaondoaje hii frame ambayo ni yes. Tueleze tu ili tujue.
Jiko ndogo.
And then tueleze hiyo 50 bob inaingiaje kwa hii kitu.
Okay. Hiyo 50 bob.
Yes.
Ni frame ni hii outer part ya jiko. Jiko kuna part iko na clay na kuna hii part yenye imeshikilia clay hii mabati. So kuunda hii mabati kama mabati ni yangu ukiniundia jiko ukitumia skill yako kuunda hiyo frame ya jiko ukimaliza nitakupea 50 bob. Hakuna kitu yako utatumia kila kitu yangu, hata nyundo ni yangu. Lakini kujua tu kuunda jiko, ukimaliza kuunda jiko moja nitakupea 50 bob. Haikuwa rahisi. Hata sasa kuna mtu nafunza kuunda hizo jiko.
Sasa kuna mtu unafunza wewe. Very good.
Nafunza rafiki yangu.
Okay.
Naona venye si rahisi.
Unaweza kuunda jiko ngapi kwa siku moja?
Sahi naweza unda kama 15.
Very nice.
Na kwa kila jiko unapata pesa ngapi?
Sahi imeongezeka bei ni 60
bob. Okay.
Jiko moja ni 60 bob.
Hiyo ni profit sasa.
Hapana. Si mwenye kazi mabati ni yake.
Okay.
So mi hiyo kuunda jiko moja na mabati yake
anakulipa 60 bob.
Analipa 60 bob.
Okay, nimeelewa.
Na jiko mtu akitaka kununua ni pesa ngapi?
Ukitaka kununua jiko yenye ishaiko clay,
kila kitu yani iko tayari.
Jiko iko na sizes. Kuna ile ndogo kabisa ni 250.
Alright.
Kuna 300. Lakini hizo ni zile mabati soft. Zile nyepesi sana.
Okay.
Sasa zile mabati ngumu, ile jiko ndogo ni 500.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kuna wakati mwingine huku unapata pesa yoyote, lakini umejua umeenda shule hapo KCB Foundation, hii ni benki. Kwa hivyo huwa wanasema wanakupea pia skill nyingine ya kusave na kujua venye una deal na pesa. Siku hizi unapata ka 60 at least 15 jikos 60 bob. Una deal aje na pesa yako juu unaangalia mbele, bado kuna ile imani kwamba tutapata workshop. Unaelewa hiyo pesa vinyo unacheza nayo size?
Ni challenge. Ni challenge. Sijui nitasemaje, lakini ni challenge. Design pesa haitoshi.
Okay.
Sasa zingine unatumia tu yenye uko nayo.
Sure.
Usurvive tu leo.
Sawa.
Mendi,
Yes.
you've seen that journey.
I have.
When you hear that and you're at the foundation and you see now direct reality of the impact that the program then does have on somebody, what does that do in your mind?
It lights a fire, really. We need to do, I think, more in terms of numbers of people that we're supporting. I think it's also a very clear call. I mean, these are conversations we have with a lot of our program participants, even more in terms of the offering to the extent that we can, right? Because even after you provide the scholarship, then as he's saying, he wants to start a workshop, right? For the attachment, right? Where you're supposed to be getting these skills that you need to be able to then now enter said workshop and also to pass your NEETA exam, right? So there's also that bridge that people have to cross, right? So it's not just about, the numbers, but it's also perhaps even deepening the offering, right? Because the need is there, but the potential also, I think.
Huge.
Yeah. Mr. Mutunga here, I mean, he is a really good example of what it is that we must be doing in terms of investing in our fellow Kenyans. So to answer your question, it lights a fire. Yeah, we need to do more. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are many more. I mean, you want to be able to do everything and cover everybody. You want to,
Would be good.
It would be great. But it takes a lot more than just resources to be able to have that done. And then something very interesting that John said, Vile Ulisema, that, it's not just the education that you get, but then it's skills that you get to be able to manage a business. I mean, the man is armed now with the tools that he needs and the skills that he requires to set up a business, money management, customer care. And that's one thing that I liked. That for the longest time, John, ulikuwa na deal na vitu zako tu, vile hauna, vile unajaribu kuenda the next step. But then now, sasa umepata, na unafikiria vile utadeal na watu wengine. So that's, for me, the wholesome aspect of the program, and then how it can actually get better people out of a situation. Was that something that you expected would happen, or are we looking at happy accident?
So our theory of change, our plan was that we had absolutely hoped that if we do these sorts of interventions, that we'd end up with people who have the required skills, as well as also enough people to also start making a difference in the economies, be they local economies that they're in or even larger. So I think that is being validated in terms of we're now being able to have within even our program participants like John here, people who do have the required skills that they need to be able to, can I just say, start, right? And that ability to now also stand on your own. So that was what we had hoped for. And I think we have been pretty validated in terms of what it is that we're hearing from our program participants, be they vocational skills training, or be they the micro and small medium enterprise support program support we're providing.
What we're also essentially seeing is that you are you're widespread. He's talking about he lived in Gong, and we've
Yes.
also had some participants from different parts of the country, which I might just want you to echo again for all those, because they might think it's just a one-off thing and you guys are closing down, but somebody is really interested at this point in time to have the same skills, impact, and motivation as Mr. Mutunga here. So what would you say to the new listeners today in as far as widespread associations with your clientele is concerned?
So thank you for that. So the vocational skills training, this is something we do every year. Typically our largest intake is at the beginning of the year, and we will usually have these calls out through the KCB social, so Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and they tend to be also like geographical in terms of we'll go from county to county, area to area, just making these calls for applications, as well as also advising people which partner institutions, in terms of be they public or private, that they can actually go to. So this is something that from about December through around May, we put out these calls, we place scholarships, and then we also make them available every year. And then for the MSME work, this is something that is actually available in the entire country. So if you are an entrepreneur, so between 18 to 34, you have your own business, and it's something that you really wanted to have maybe a bit more support because you wanted maybe to access finance, but you weren't able to for whatever reason. So we also put out these calls through on a rolling basis throughout the rest through the course of the year. But in addition to that, if you walk to any KCB branch, and we're literally everywhere. Right, you should be able to get support from our branch staff, and then, as I said, also when now we're having these calls, we'll also put them out through our main KCB socials.
John,
Yes.
uko na imani ya vitu kuendelea kuwa better and better ukiendelea, ungependa kufanya nini in the next few months?
Already nishaanza kuzifanya. Hata siangalii few months, angalia 2030. Hiyo vision 2030 ilikuwa ya Kibaki. Mimi venye nilielewa, watu wanafaa to build Kenya. Nataka kuwa part
of building the nation. It's a good place to be, absolutely. And these are the conversations that push us. These are conversations that we should have in terms of how Kenyans and how opportunities meet to then be able to make better people, then to be able to make better communities, and then essentially, a better nation. And we want to thank both of you for being here this morning. Mendi and Njonjo, director at the KCB Foundation, and John Mutunga, a participant in the 2Jiajiri program, who obviously now is standing on his feet in a way in which he wasn't before. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here in this conversation this hour. And more like this must continue. That's what builds the nation. Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.